everyone, Brian Zane here. Well, it was 7 years ago that I first took a look at Halloween Havoc 2000 on this channel, but a lot has changed since 2017, and it's this year where I am finishing the story of WCW in the year 2000, filling in the blanks, going back and recapping the shows that I had missed all these years I've been doing the reviews. And of course, I began this journey by redoing Super Brawl 2000 because I feel a lot has changed in how I did the reviews back then. And much like this Halloween Havoc 2000 video, I think a lot's changed about my tastes and the way I review these classic shows. And, have my opinions on this show changed with greater context and background? I'm kind of interested and curious in looking back at this before looking at Mayhem 2000 in November. I wanted to retrace my steps and maybe fill in some blanks as I revisit here in the month of the 25th anniversary of this show, WCW Halloween Havoc 2000 from October 29th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, the 5th year in a row they're there in Las Vegas. So a lot about the WCW landscape has already changed dramatically both in front of the camera and behind it since Fall Brawl, the last show I reviewed on this timeline. Soon after Fall Brawl happened, Vince Russo became the #1 contender for the WCW Championship, and as I've recently talked about in a countdown a couple of weeks ago, Vince won the championship by being speared out of the cage by Goldberg, but in the process he got a severe concussion as a result of that, and then the following week he gave up the championship. He made a single appearance in the Pope Mobile to protect himself from Bill Goldberg, and it was that night where he declared to Goldberg, you have to repeat your 176-0 win streak in order to even get another shot at the championship, and if you lose once, then you are done with WCW. And so after that appearance on TV, though, Russo is essentially done as both an on-air personality in WCW and as the head writer. He's going at home to rest, deservedly so, and so it's basically Ed Ferreira and Terry Taylor trying to, kind of not correct, but basically try and pick up where he left off and try and continue these storylines. And in the immediate aftermath of Fall Brawl, for instance, Kevin Nash has pivoted from being in the world title picture to mentoring and coaching the natural born thrillers, who are still a huge part, a hugely consistent, annoyingly so part of WCW programming. They're really just infecting and taking over everything at this point. And so Kevin Nash is kind of like the Bobby Knight for, the thrillers and everything, which would be fine if they weren't hitting you over the head with it and saying on commentary, he's like their Bobby Knight. Also, in a big plot point that will be addressed later in this show, Mike Sanders is given this kind of interim commissioner job from Vince Russo on his way out. So he starts doing a lot of corrupt-ass stuff to help benefit the thrillers, more on that later, and it also leads to a power struggle between he and the Cat. Again, more on that later. And also something pretty cool to point out during the build for this show is that they spent a couple of weeks doing a tour of Australia as well. So they did a couple of Nitros and Thunders from down under, and those shows did really well for them. It's interesting that even though domestically WCW was circling the drain, the international shows they would do in the UK and Australia and in Germany still did really well for them. Cold Open sees the exterior of the MGM Grand, and Tony Schiavone says, and all day long, the fans have been taking sides about tonight's big matchups. And we see Pamela just asking about the Goldberg-Kronik match, and both guys say Goldberg is going to win. Yeah, people are really taking sides there. Something I thought was interesting during Fall Brawl, they ran a promo for Halloween Havoc, and in that one, they were very specifically saying, Sting is going to undergo a transformation at Halloween Havoc. And even the poster suggests something's going on with Sting. He looks like a super creepy version of Sting there, but no, that never comes up again after that promo initially they showed, and it's no, they're not really advertising that ever again. But we do go to the opening hype package, which looks kind of similar to that spot where the narrator goes, All Hallows Eve, the time of the year for the unexplained, the unexpected, the unpredicted. The waking hour has arrived, for these men must conquer their fears, face their demons, and overcome defeat. They all have distinct missions, but one goal in common, win. Absolute supremacy. And they wrap it up by saying it's sponsored by WCW Backstage Assault, and they just show the logo at the end. I thought that package was kind of by the numbers and boring, but I did mark out a little bit, super subtle thing, but just that dissolve to like the live shot of the screen, the big screen in the arena being really close to the logo on the tape, and they do the snap zoom out. That was kind of a neat transition. Just about 7,600 folks in the arena for this one. The Halloween Havoc attendance really peaked in 1997, just over 12,000. Now it's down significantly from there. And here's another sobering statistic for you. Halloween Havoc 99 drew 230,000 pay-per-view buys. Halloween Havoc 2000, 70,000. You got Tony Schiavone, Stevie Ray, and Mark Madden on the call. Your opening matchup for the WCW tag titles as the Natural Born Thrillers, Jindrak and O'Haire, defend against Disco Inferno and Alex Wright, the Boogie Knights, and the Filthy Animals. That's Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. So the night after Fall Brawl, as Tony alluded to happening at Fall Brawl, Disco cost the Filthy Animals the tag team titles, and that resulted in them finally kicking him out of the group. He is reunited with Alex Wright, who is not Berlin anymore, but he is still bald, and he's also a lot bigger than he was the last time we saw him. They actually pinned Jindrak and O'Haire on Nitro in Australia and supposedly won the tag belts, but Mike Sanders, the interim commissioner, reversed the decision because he could, and so there. Something I mentioned in the original video, which still is going to hold true here, is that Mark Madden on commentary, boy, he is a gift that keeps on giving. And, that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because he says a lot of really out-of-pocket things here. He compares, well, first of all, he's comparing Jindrak and O'Haire to, like, all these other great tag teams, like, to get heat. Like, oh, he compares them to the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. And Stevie Ray's like, are you really comparing Jindrak to Arn Anderson? And Madden's like, yes. And Stevie's like, okay, and just tries to keep going. And then Madden compares them to a white Harlem Heat, and Stevie's like, you got heat with me now, Madden. We have Kidman, Wright, and Jindrak starting things off. Jindrak is taken out for a minute, and then the action really speeds up. Ray goes for the Bronco Buster, but is taken to Super Dick Kick City. Jindrak is so agile. Sean O'Haire, such explosive energy. Really fun to watch these guys. The Sunset Flip attempt is blocked. Disco steps in and hits a DDT. I thought that was pretty nice. Stevie and Konnan on commentary start to debate about like the benefits and the drawbacks to teams helping each other in a triple threat match. Like, you can't trust anybody. Oh, but it's good to, wear down your opponent. Like, wow, I never expected to get such like legitimately good, insightful commentary from these guys during this match. Wright and Jindrak are teaming up on the smaller Kidman. There's a Tower of Doom spot, and Kidman just comes crashing down hard on that one. Ray hits a drop kick on O'Haire's leg. Looks like he hit it pretty hard because he is hopping for a while afterward. They hit the big trademark double Beal spot that they can only do to cruiserweights on Kidman. Then they hurl Ray into the ring, and Wright just slams him in midair. This match is becoming non-stop insanity. And Madden trying to come up with any German reference he can for Alex Wright. He just yells Achtung when he does anything. And at one point he says he looked like a Luftwaffe pilot. Like, shut the fuck up, Madden. Ray hits the top rope Hurricane Rana on Disco, follows up with the Bronco Buster. Wright goes flying outside. Jindrak with this crazy lift on Ray and dumps him out. We get either the Chart Buster or the Last Dance by Disco. We have two conflicting color commentators calling it different moves here. And then Ray breaks up the pinfall, the Shanton Bomb onto Disco, the cover, and the win. Like I mentioned in the Super Brawl 2000 Redux, one of the fun things about doing these kind of retreads of the classic reviews is you get to do it under a whole new revised star rating system, because back then it was out of 4 stars and now it's out of 5. And in the words of Stevie Ray, with the phrase he was trying so hard to get over on this night, my God, my God, my God, I give this one 4 stars out of 5. Wow, this was such a great match. I mean, like, this match was pretty much ahead of its time because it was a lot of big, chaotic, athletic action, especially between such bigger guys like Jindrak O'Haire and Alex Wright and whatnot. The stuff they were getting in this match was very entertaining. It was a very fun opener. But we move right along now to that match for the hardcore title as the previously introduced Sergeant AWOL challenges Reno. Reno recently became the new hardcore champion. There was a tournament after the title had been vacated to crown a new one, and so it came down to Reno and AWOL, and you'll never guess what happens. So AWOL actually beats Reno in the ring, and then Mike Sanders comes out and says, "Nuh-uh," and now Reno's the champion after they restart the match. And so, wow, like 2 weeks in a row, they did that exact same thing where Sanders just like dusty finishes and the Thrillers have the belts. And oh, by the way, Sanders is also the Cruiserweight champion at this time. Moments into the match, Reno launches AWOL through a table. We have new rules for these hardcore matches in WCW. They're like the old rules. And Tony Schiavone brings up, it used to be you had to start these hardcore matches in the backstage area. And I'm like, yeah, sort of like how these matches in Backstage Assault are, the new video game that is sponsoring this show. Would have been nice to have some synergy and actually have the match start out in the backstage like the matches in the game. Granted, they never go to the ring in the video game. They're fighting on the outside, many trash can shots, AWOL with this big kendo stick shot, which makes Mark Madden scream. Mid-fight, AWOL just walks up to commentary and gives Stevie Ray the too sweet apropos of nothing. Then Stevie makes this all-time great face to the crowd. This is an amazing moment in the middle of this match. Up on the ramp, Reno bludgeons Wall's balls, hits a roll of the dice. Whoa! But he's not done. He grabs a table, then another one. Now's a good time to remind you of the sponsor. But he who sets it gets it, and the Wall throws Reno through both of those tables. What a beautiful break that was. The fight continues its way to the backstage area. Okay, now you guys should have shown the game sponsor. Wall grabs a very fake computer monitor and hurls it at Reno, but he misses. More backstage mayhem. Wall just picks up and drops Reno onto this table. It's not gimmicked. It looks like he just tries to jump on it or through it, so it looks kind of fucked. Wall decks him with a fake monitor. They're going through the go position on the way to the ring. There's the gimmick table. You will see all these gimmicks being used later in the evening. See which ones you can spot. They also deck Finlay on the way out, Madden making a nice Reno reference in regard to Reno the wrestler.
He's rolling down the ramp like a bowling ball!
Wall gets out another table, but he seems to be too gassed to follow up. Reno hits him with a chair and another roll of the dice on the table to win and retain. The bell rings, but Reno is not done. Suddenly, in run Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak. More NBT members, more white guys. They get to stomping, but then in runs Lieutenant Loco and Corporal Cajun to help their fellow MIA member. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was, a pretty fun, hardcore match. I liked the use of the props that they had at their disposal. I can't imagine what home electronics store they must have gone to get that fake monitor that they had. I mean, I just popped big for that. I don't know why this match needed a post-match beatdown, much like the previous match that led to this one, especially when this next moment happens. We go to this pre-taped moment where we see the Natural Born Thrillers backstage. Keep in mind, 3 of the people on this screen are literally still out there making their way to the back. So that's great continuity you have there. And then you've got Shane Douglas walking in and being like, wow, guys, that was really great. You guys laying out Konnan earlier in the day. What an amazing idea that was. Boy, Kevin Nash was right about you guys. Oh, by the way, Kevin Nash is not here tonight, which is, I think, going to greatly and negatively impact the arc of the Thrillers here on this show, for as ever present as they are. So anyway, Shane's doing all this stuff, and like he's talking about it as if, I brought this up in the original review. He's talking about it as if it didn't just happen during match 1 after Konnan was at commentary. And then they throw up the earlier today graphic in the middle of the video. And I'm like, no, now you're making it worse because now the timeline makes no sense. Even if you were trying to be generous and say, well, during match 1 is technically earlier in the day, it's earlier than now, and you would have like, oh, Shane saying, wow, I can't believe what you just did earlier today when you beat up Konnan. So like after match 1, but then that doesn't account for Reno still being in the shot. This is such madness. And like, how did they fuck this up? So last week on Thunder, Goldberg legitimately KO'd himself wrestling Kronik in a tag team match. They show a recap of what happened. This is a classic like Botchamania clip here. It's one of the OG Botchamanias where Goldberg just rams his head right into the ring post. So the lads at the desk are debating whether or not Goldberg will be cleared to wrestle. And as they go over some more of the big matches for the night, they toss to the back where you see Kronik, the Bryans, Adams, and Clark talking to some doctors from the State Athletic Commission and giving them the heads up, hey, Goldberg, he got his bell rung real bad last week. You probably shouldn't clear him to compete tonight because, they've got that big handicap match with him later in the evening scheduled. So we'll see if that happens. Well, hey, kids, do you like hearing the Natural Born Thrillers porn-ass music? Then you will love seeing them come out again as the perfect event of Shawn Stasiak and Chuck Palumbo taking on Lieutenant Loco and Corporal Cajun. They said they made this match just now as a result of what happened, at the end of the last matchup. So my theory is they made this last minute, but they needed to find a way to justify it, hence that, the fracas at the end of match 2, but then they forgot about the pre-tape that they ran and must just not have thought about it, because if you had looked through that rundown for 10 seconds, somebody surely should have noticed that. Good, fast double team work by MIA to start things off. Chavo gets dumped to the outside, but you see Stasiak and Palumbo. They've been having some issues for the last couple of weeks, and it shows up again here. The big guys really overpowering their opponents. They even hit Lieutenant Loco with a flapjack.
It's called the flapjack. Okay.
Palumbo with the sleeper, Loco fights out for a little bit, gets back into the sleeper, Chavo gets the hot tag in, you got a pair in opposite corners, they're setting up forever for something. Palumbo accidentally super kicks his own man, Chavo hits the Tornado DDT to win. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 5. I thought it was, a fine basic tag team match. Makes you wonder why it was added to the card in the first place. It was such a slapdash addition to it, and it didn't add anything. Didn't take away from the show, unless you're really sick of the Natural Born Thrillers, but it didn't really add to it either. We see backstage, Konnan's getting checked on, and we see Kidman and Ray enter, and I don't know why they even had them in this scene to say this line, other than to make them look like dorks, because they're like, well, we'd love to wrestle in your place, but we just had a match, so, and no valor, no honor between these guys. Because Konnan's like, all right, fine, thanks. I love that. I'm going to wrestle now. And so we go to that next matchup. It's supposed to be an intergender tag team matchup as Konnan and Tygress of the Filthy Animals are set to take on Shane Douglas and Torrie Wilson, who is the only person tonight who is embracing the Halloween theme with the Wonder Woman outfit. And they're apparently fighting over who is the first couple in sports entertainment, or at least that is what Shane Douglas says here, what the stakes are in this matchup. We have seen Team Blondie do some dastardly things over the last several weeks to the Filthy Animals, after what they did, in the scaffold match and everything at Fall Brawl. We see here, Shane, they're using mace, they're using handcuffs. I do love when Konnan is cutting promos on Shane on TV, he's making fun of Shane's mannerisms, where he's like, hey, franchise, ha 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 ha. So Shane's on the mic here saying Konnan is too stupid to not know when to stay down. He says that he and Tygress won't be taking away their title of the first couple of sports entertainment. And he says, since Jindrak and O'Hare taught you a lesson, it seems, Tygress, you have no partner. And if you want to come out here and say, get your ass franchise, then come on down, baby. The way he says that is just, it's the worst. Doesn't matter if he says it to a man or a woman when he says, get your ass. So Tygress comes out all by herself. She's got a mic and says that Konnan may not be able to fight, but she is. She goes for the first strike, but Shane sees it coming and they push her down. Tygress takes Shane to Dick Kick City and gives Torrie a terrible arm drag. Torrie sells into the corner for the Bronco Buster, but Douglas puts a stop to that. They're going to set up for what looks to be a double franchiser, but Konnan runs in. Shane stomps on him. We get this double clothesline attempt going awry. Konnan hits the rolling clothesline, and he's got his second wind back, I guess, because he is not selling that back anymore for the rest of this matchup. The guys on commentary are marveling at Tygress' ability to perform an arm wrench on Douglas. Well, she could barely do an arm drag, so I guess this is an improvement. Tygress is now biting Shane's arm. Shane seems to be tapping from this. They keep countering until Shane just punches her. Tygress is laid out from that, and the heels take over. Mark Madden at one point calling Tygress a battered, broken dish rag of a woman in this matchup. Like, holy shit. Shane puts Tygress in the crossface chicken wing. She's not immediately tapping. In fact, she creates momentum to dump Shane out of the ring. I like that spot. She avoids the franchise and tags in Konnan. Tygress about to hit the face full of stuff on Torrie, who pulls the referee in the way. Then Tygress takes 5 seconds to stop what she's doing. I love that because the referee is there. She hasn't even started running yet to do the face full of stuff. She's like, and she's like, oh no, I guess I better jump and do like 3 or 4 bounces. And like, oh man. Torrie hits a franchiser on Konnan, which admittedly looks good, but Konnan is selling it way too much like death, considering she is a valet and that her offense should not really hurt him. Tygress even has to make the save, which I thought was absolutely crazy. Shane takes the double stuff buster for the Filthy Animals to win. I'm gonna give it 1 star out of 5. My biggest issue with this match is there was way too much stuff for, Shane and Konnan to be selling from the valets. Like, I think intergender wrestling is fine. I can have a place for it, but like considering the experience and the training levels like of these two ladies, especially Torrie, against, Shane and Konnan, for them to have sold as much as they did, I thought was really unnecessary. And boy, we don't take much time to revel in these victories, these matches, because like within 10 seconds after like the bell rings and a winner's announced, we go right into the next like backstage segment. There's no time to like sell anything that's happening here. We go to the promo zone with Mean Gene Okerlund and David Flair still wearing the UK tour shirt with some lab techs beside him. Oh yes, charts. Oh, there's some science. Gene says, tonight you got a DNA match with Buff Bagwell. Who are these two gentlemen? And I love this because David's like, never mind them, Gene. And then he goes right into an explanation of who they are. He goes, it's pretty obvious that gigolo piece of crap is the father. And when I beat him tonight, I'll have the blood to prove it. That's why I have
these two guys
right here. Tomorrow on Nitro, I'll have the DNA to prove what a liar and a piece of garbage Buff is. Well, where has this crazy saga between David Flair and Stacy Keibler taken us this month? As I mentioned, they had their wedding just before Fall Brawl. Stacy lets David know that he is not the father of her as yet unborn baby. And so David has snapped and he has gone on a mission to try and find the father of the child. He's been beating up other wrestlers and crew members and mailmen, you name it. And at one point, he even acquires a videotape from M.I. Smooth, where he says, oh, the father of the baby, like the proof is right there on this tape. And so David, let's call him Dave. He gets the tape, does Dave, and then we see him bring somebody in to Nitro who's like bound and chained up. He's wearing like a mask, and his clothes are in tatters, and Flair's been clearly torturing this mystery individual. Like, who is this? Who could this possibly be? And then David brings him into the ring, does Dave, and then like he just lets him go, and then he unmasks, and it's Buff Bagwell. And Bagwell just attacks Flair. Like, well, what did Dave expect? He let him go. So now Buff is accused of being the father based on the videotape evidence from the kid cam footage that Dave got from M.I. Smooth. Buff denies the allegations. He won't be giving Dave his DNA unless he makes him bleed here in this matchup. Look at Tommy Toon in the audience enjoying the show here. We see Buff with a mic saying, tonight we'll find out if Buff Daddy is the real daddy. We see David walking out with some kind of test kit in his hand he puts on the announce desk. Commentary is trying to explain the rules of that being first blood. And they do bring up a very good point. Like, well, what's the point? What happens if David loses? Because we already know he's not the father because Stacy told us. And yes, that is a very good point. Buff's working over David for a long long time here. He appears to be having fun with his much less experienced opponent. Flair does the turnbuckle flip and the top rope Beal. We got shades of the old man here, and all-time Flair flop out of the corner. Buff is now puppeteering David, who finally fights back. On the outside, he's going for a pile driver on the exposed concrete, but Buff fights out of it. Buff crotching David on one of the ropes, then does this running chair shot to the head. Flair flies out of the ring and is now busted open. He walks back into the ring. Buff hits the blockbuster, but the referee sees that he's bleeding, so the match is just over. Suddenly, Lex Luger, who's been off TV for months and has just recently been showing up on Thunders for no reason, walks in. The two of them hug it out. Then Luger betrays Buff. He actually rams Bagwell headfirst into the ring post, and now we see Bagwell's mouth is bleeding. David Flair, who just got his ass kicked, comes back. He grabs a test kit. He swipes some of the blood from Buff's mouth. And he's like, I got it. And he crawls back to the backstage area. He gets down on his hands and knees. He hands the test strip to the lab technicians, who grab it and immediately like, oh, we got it. And they just run off. They like scamper off. We got what we need. We got to run on a Sunday night where all the labs are closed, but we got to do this. And so, but that was crazy because like Flair's own blood is all over the hands and presumably the DNA test strip, right? But then as they're running off, we see Goldberg, who has finally arrived in the building, and look at him selling that concussion there. I give it a half star out of 5. I hated this matchup. This was just not fun to watch. The announcers seemed confused the entire time trying to like wrap their heads around where the storyline has gone so far. And for a first blood match, like until the end, they were like not wrestling at all. Like they were trying to like draw blood from their opponents' heads at all. They were just doing like regular wrestling for a few minutes. It was just, yeah, this was not a good matchup. But you know, I guess I shouldn't be surprised given David Flair's in it. And also, why are Luger and Buff fighting now? They're gonna be totally buffed not too long after this. We're in the promo zone. Scott Steiner's with Medeja. Pamela announces that Goldberg is there, but Scott cuts her off and says, that bald punk I beat last month, that bald punk I proved was a mere mortal. And he keeps going, as far as Booker T is concerned, Booker T, you got all night to understand. You bit off more than you could chew. Booker T, you got all night to run scared, because tonight, I'm going to make you understand that size does matter, and I'm the genetic freak, and it's up to me how fast I decide when I want to beat you. Because Booker T, tonight, there will be pain, and nobody gets up from the Steiner recliner. Up next, a kickboxing match for the Commissionership of WCW as above-average cruiserweight champion Mike Sanders takes on the Cat. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, Mike Sanders was given a lot of authority by Vince Russo on his way out. So he's been drunk with power. And meanwhile, there's the Cat, who I'm pretty sure never actually lost the commissionership role at any point in the last few months, but like he's still the commissioner. And there's not enough room for two commissioners in WCW, which is why we're having this kickboxing match. And of course, the whole story is that Sanders is totally out of his element because, you know, the Cat is a 3-time world karate champion. Sanders comes out with the perfect event and says, while you guys have been spending your kids' college tuition, I've been training and working hard. This ain't gonna be no one-round Tyson match. This ain't gonna be a Rumble in the Jungle or a Thrilla in Manila. It's gonna be me dead in yo ass. Okay, this coming from supposedly like, you know, the future of the business in terms of the mic for Mike Sanders. Like, you know, I think he cut good promos for this time period, but it just, I don't know, it just didn't come off as very genuine to me whenever he talked. The Cat comes out with Miss Jones and he says, bitch, I'ma whoop yo ass. So the rules here are it's 3 2-minute rounds and they have to answer the 10 count after they're knocked down, otherwise they're gonna lose. Seems simple enough, right? Well, here we go. The match begins and, you know, Mike tries to show off at first, but he is just repeatedly getting knocked down and humiliated by Miller here. You know, we go through the first 2 rounds. Sanders looks totally gassed. Commentary is calling him an idiot. And while that's going on, Stasiak and Palumbo, they're arguing over the towel and whether they should throw it. Suddenly, Shane Douglas appears to calm things down. He is there, like he said in the pre-tape, to help watch over them, basically. The 3rd round has started. More ass kicking by Miller. The Cat is suddenly distracted by Palumbo on the apron. Franchise with the chain shot. So the referee's making the count. The Cat's laid out. This should be the finish, right? That makes sense. No. It's not the finish, because here's what happens. Sanders, at 9, puts his foot on the Cat's chest. That alone should break the count. And then, by the way, seconds are ticking down here. There's like 15 seconds left in the round. So Sanders puts his foot on Kat's chest. Kat pops up, and then the time expires. There's no bell for a long time. There's just like a delay. Bell finally rings, and then they're like, no, it's not done. And then like the Cat just goes out there. He's fighting now. He's fighting Shane on the outside. The referee counts him out there, and that allows Sander to win the commissionership. Like, what the fuck was that? Why did you double up on that? You've got Shane Douglas costing him once already. Why do it again? Unless somebody fucked up, unless someone just missed their cue. I give this -3 stars out of 5. Look, I don't like the boxing matches in wrestling. That being said, it's a really hard formula to fuck up, and they did it here. And when done well, it can still be entertaining. But this was not that. How do you fuck up the end of like a boxing match style thing like this? Only WCW in 2000 could cock this up. Backstage, we see Goldberg with the Athletic Commission doctors. He says he's been having some dizziness, but that's just part of the territory. Wow, what a badass. And he says, you can try all you want, but there ain't no damn way you're keeping me from doing my job tonight. Elsewhere in the promo zone, Kronik is with Okerlund, and he says, you guys might win without even having to get into the ring. Brian Clark says, if Goldberg can't compete, it's just too damn bad. Either way, they get paid. Adam says Goldberg has until the end of the night to be cleared to wrestle. Either way, they're still paid. You don't wrestle, you forfeit, your winning streak is over, and your punk ass is out of WCW for good. Up next, that 70s guy, Mike Awesome, takes on Vampiro. So back in September, Awesome powerbombed Vamp out of the ring through a table, took Vampiro out of action for several weeks. Then during that time, Awesome fought the Insane Clown Posse in a hardcore match on Nitro, and that was kind of an all-time Nitro moment where Awesome powerbombs Shaggy 2 Dope on the roof of the bus, and then like he can't control him, so he just slides on the way down to the concrete in a kind of a scary way. But that was the last time we saw ICP in WCW, and then a couple weeks after that, Vampiro did return in kind of a surprise moment on the go-home week before Halloween Havoc. He fights Crowbar in a very long, drawn-out, unnecessarily long match, and he ends up putting Crowbar away, putting him through tables, and because Crowbar is friends with Mike Awesome now, Vamp is like saying, the blood of Crowbar is on your hands. He wants a return match, and here we go. Before the match, though, Vampiro says, you got a title match scheduled for tomorrow night since you're such a big name right now. How about if I beat you tonight? I get that title shot. Awesome agrees to it, and the match is on. A lot of bombs being thrown early on here. Vampiro rolls to the outside. Awesome dives after him. Vamp is vaulted over the barricade and falls right into one of the ladies working security. They fight their way into the crowd, up the steps. Vampiro grabs this microphone stand that I guess was stashed away for this matchup. A fan gets involved and suffers dearly for it. Back to the ring, Vampiro brings in some chairs. We have ourselves a chair war. It ends with Vampiro kicking a chair into Awesome's face. There's a sign here on the hard cam I'm just now noticing where it says, goodbye Eric B, Vince R, welcome JR, Shane O'Mac. And that was a weird sign because I'm like, this is months before, there's any news of Fusion Media trying to buy WCW. This is, WWF buying WCW is like not in the conversation really at this point, I don't think. So, I don't know, was there any truth to that rumor? Or was there any rumor that like, that Jim Ross and Shane McMahon could be running WCW like Bischoff and Russo were before they went back off TV? Or was this guy just kind of halfway predicting the state of WCW a year from now? Vampiro with a clothesline that just decks Awesome on top of the head. Fighting to the top rope, we get a very scary fall for both guys with a suplex. Follows up with a giant leaping sit from the top rope that also looks like a rough landing. Awesome pulls out a table. Vampiro tries to throw Mike face first into the edge, and it just does not happen. The fans see that and boo it. Vampiro hits the nail in the coffin, looks under the ring for something. He cannot seem to find it. Uh-oh, time to call an audible powerbomb on the floor, powerbomb on the floor. And this suddenly is a Falls Count Anywhere match now, evidently. Vampiro gets back up fairly quickly. They work their way back up to the top rope again. And oh dear, an awesome bomb off the top. Concussion City for Vampiro. Awesome pins and wins. I'll give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match looked like a rough one for both guys to get through. Like it looked like a colossal struggle near the end, and I think it really brought the match down for me. Sometimes when you have matches that have these kind of botches, they can kind of turn into happy accidents, and you can make, lemonade out of lemons, but we did not get that in this matchup. And oh man, I felt bad for Vampiro, the way his head just clattered on the ring there. He did get a big concussion. I believe he tried to wrestle again the next night and got another concussion, which is absolutely stupid. And that was the last we saw of Vampiro in WCW because of that. And even though the Insane Clown Posse was no longer in WCW, the connection to Vampiro, the JCW champion at the time, was still there. And hey, it's a connection that is still felt today, 25 years later, as Vampiro is part of JCW, body slamming artists all the way.
JCW Lunacy. New episodes every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. For over 25 years, JCW has delivered the very best in pro wrestling entertainment, bringing fans deep storytelling drama, gut-busting comedy, and unbelievable in-ring action. From wild characters to unforgettable rivalries, JCW has built a legacy that spans generations of fans. Whether you've been watching since day one or you're brand new to the chaos, there's never been a better time to join the madness. See why JCW is the hottest promotion in independent wrestling today, where anything can happen, and usually does.
Oh, take a look at this!
Don't miss a single moment. Tune in every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube and catch up on past episodes right now. JCW Lunacy. It's more than wrestling, it's a way of life.
We're backstage with the Misfits in action. For perhaps the final time, you have the opportunity, General Rection, to win back the U.S. title and major guns if you survive a handicap match with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Lance Storm. And he says, we're pulling for you. Good luck, Hugh. And Hugh Morris, General Rection, with another very impassioned promo, talking about that he's doing it for, the Misfits in action. He's doing it for Hugh Morris, for Bill DeMott, for all the C-Team players. Everyone was pulling for me in this very building last year, and people they didn't think I'd be back, but I'm back here, and I came back. Win, lose, or draw, I got back up, he said. So it's a very strong babyface promo here as we go to that match now for the US/Canadian title, handicap style. Now, last time at Fall Brawl, as we saw, Jim Duggan turned his back on the Misfits in action and the good old US of A when he betrayed Rection and joined Team Canada. And man, the makeover they gave him the night afterward was horrifying, because Duggan not only got a haircut, he also shaved his beard. When you were playing like WrestleMania 2000 or No Mercy, and you go to like the character editing and you would take like the beards off of certain wrestlers and it just looked really unsettling and creepy, that's what happened when Duggan lost his beard. Thank God he grew it back, in the last couple of weeks for this, because that was just, that was a bridge too far. You can wear the Canadian colors for all I care, just don't lose the beard, because that is some deeply uncanny valley shit. Storm wants to be serious for a minute, and he says, that little interview with General Rection almost brought a tear to my eye, because it's sad when a man can't admit that he's beaten. He actually believes in that win in the end, never say die American propaganda. Tonight, you don't get the gold, you don't get the girl, all you get is the beating of your life. It's anthem time, but it gets cut off with the Misfits theme and General Rection waving Old Glory as he makes his way to the ring. Before the match, we see the referee telling Hacksaw he can't have the 2x4, so he's like, let's put it right here on the apron, perfectly out of the way. Rection's off to a hot start, launching Duggan out of the ring, fighting off Lance and absorbing his chops. They finally decide after a while that yes, the heels do need to tag in and out. Duggan and Storm laying into Rection in the ring, but the General continues to find ways to stay in the fight. Duggan takes forever to hit a body slam. Wow, this is getting boring. The fans are really starting to turn on this. He goes for the 3-point stance, but Rection clotheslines him, so they both go down. Duggan gets a blind tag in, which backfires. That allows Rection to start firing up. We get a double drop down involving the referee, and that leads to a ref bump. Duggan, the last man standing, he picks up Rection and pile drives him. After a long time, the referee crawls to make the cover, the kick out, and the referee is smooshed. In comes Elix Skipper, but Major Guns lightly taps him with the Canadian flag. She even pulls Storm down by the waist of his tights to the floor. Storm's getting pissed about that. While that's all going on, Rection ducks the 2x4 swing from Duggan. He hits the no laughing matter to win and is the new U.S. champion, and Major Guns is back in America. I'm going to give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match felt painfully slow to me. It just didn't feel like a very pivotal match here in the series. Also, it doesn't feel like a great victory when Rection doesn't even beat the champion to become the new champ. Like, he pins Duggan to do it. So it feels like kind of a half-hearted, not even a great moral victory in that sense. But something tells me we will get more of this story as we head into Mayhem in November. And speaking of which, they're going to show us a promo for the pay-per-view that almost damn near spoils either this main event or the one for the next month.
WCW censored Scott Steiner. Now the genetic freak will be unleashed.
Pamela Paul shocks with Jeff Jarrett, and Jarrett goes, "Trick or treat, you blonde slapnuts. Hey, you bring any blonde cookies to Okerlund lately? Ho-ho! The chosen ones in the Halloween spirit. The world will witness the metamorphosis of Sting's career. Hey, starting from a nobody, ho-ho, to a has-been, to a never was." In our next matchup, it's Sting versus Jeff Jarrett. And boy, that does feel oddly familiar, but we'll just keep moving on. Anyway, after Fall Brawl, Jarrett was really starting to pick on Sting. He was accusing him of having no heart, no passion left. You're old, you're over the hill, you'd rather spend your time filming Turner movies like Shutter Speed. He showed up in Australia dressed as Surfer Sting and mocked him all night, only for the real Sting to rappel down and fight back. Huge ovation for the Stinger in Vegas on this night. Great job by Shivani, like putting the Stinger over for his longevity, saying, the first Halloween Havoc was in 1989 and Sting was there. At this point, Tony Schiavone is definitely checked out, but when he is on and when he still can find something in the product to be passionate about, he can definitely still go. Sting jumps Jarrett on the outside and the match begins. Sting is all over Jarrett. Then suddenly we hear somebody go, "Ow!" And we have some guy standing on stage dressed as old Sting. Real Sting fights him off, hits the death drop on the phony. Jarrett comes back. Now they're fighting in the crowd. Suddenly, another fake old Sting shows up. Fake Sting number 2 just walks up to real Sting. They look at each other. They start fighting. Fake Sting's having a hard time getting out of that jacket, though. He can't go over the ropes the first time. Sting disposes of him. He comes back to the ring. We're finally going to get some one-on-one action. Then suddenly, the Wolfpack music plays. No, Kevin Nash isn't here. He's still not showing up. But we do get Wolfpack Sting. Good golly gee, this shit is stupid. Sting runs up on him, grabs his bat, beats him up with it. Okay, back to the Scorpion death drop zone with you. Jarrett grabs the bat. He hits Sting with it multiple times right in front of the ref. They're fighting back to the ring, and Tony is trying to help paint the picture on commentary here by saying, Sting is having to fight through his demons here. He's fighting himself and Jeff Jarrett. And I'm like, I don't know, the way you phrase it, it almost makes it seem like you say that Jarrett has a point. The sleeper is applied. Madden points out that everyone's used it tonight. Sting fights out of it. We get a double down. Sting starts to sting up. He gets the Scorpion Deathlock ready. Suddenly, another Sting pops up through the canvas. What the hell? He pulls Sting under the ring, but wait a minute. This time, the Raspberry Jam falls on the faker's face, not the real Sting. Sting shrugs it off. He's back on Jarrett. Then the lights cut out. Good fucking Lord, what now? Another fake Sting now comes down from the rafters. Then he does a little spin. What is this wig he's wearing? Sting's beating that guy up, and my favorite part is Stevie Ray saying, "This guy's worse than all of them." Scorpion death drop on the 5th fake Sting through the announce table. Fake Crow from earlier El Kabong Sting. He no-sells that and disposes of him. Then Jarrett El Kabong Sting pins and wins. I'm going to give it a half star out of 5. This match had so much bullshit I could not believe it. What an incredibly insane genius Jeff Jarrett would be in kayfabe to orchestrate this plan where there are 6 individuals he enlists to play fake Stings and then to, plot the match out. Again, all planning this in kayfabe where, okay, at this point, at this time, I'm going to want you to come out and go, ow! I'm going to want you to pop out from the canvas. Like, what if that guy did it first? It's mind-blowing to me, the lengths at which we're supposed to believe any of this. Like, why didn't Sting respond the next week with a bunch of, fake Jarretts with long curly hair and flashing sunglasses and the strappy tops and shit? But the more I think about it, I'm like, did these guys just kind of provide the blueprint for the Firefly Funhouse match? Pam's in the promo zone with WCW champ Booker T. She says this match against Scott Steiner is one of the biggest title defenses of your career, but what about Goldberg? Booker first says there's a difference between Steiner saying he deserves being champion and him actually being one. He says he wants to give Goldberg a little more time to get ready for his match tonight. You got to get more time. You got to give more time for the brain to heal, you got to hold a button down somewhere to really fill out that meter. In what is technically the main event for the WCW Championship, Booker T defense against Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. Steiner has been on a fast track to challenge for the world title ever since he beat Goldberg at Fall Brawl. And of course, with Kevin Nash off to coach the Natural Born Thrillers and Jeff Jarrett doing whatever the fuck he's doing with Sting, that leaves Steiner as the lone man from that group who's really able to challenge Booker at this moment. And the story is he is crazier than ever. He is more unhinged and violent. He is clubbing people left and right with the steel pipe and whatnot. Hell, on the go-home week for Nitro, he shows up, makes his entrance with a tiger. So that was neat. And, I've talked about it before, but I just want to bring up again that it is really cool that Booker T and Scott Steiner feuded through every division in WCW all the way through the end. I really think it is one of WCW's greatest rivalries. Steiner's pissed the match isn't going on last, so he attacks Ricky Santana in the go position as a result. By the way, they have taped up the hole in the canvas from the last match. The match begins with some good backy-forthy, Booker using his speed, Steiner using his strength, Stevie saying that Steiner is too out of control. He's too undisciplined. He's never going to be a world champion. Never, ever, never. Medeja with the distraction. Steiner takes advantage and gets to clubbing with the steel chair. Then he just picks Booker up, walks several feet with him, and then just drops him through the announce table. And Stevie goes, "Tony, that was the last table we had." Back in the ring, Booker starts making a comeback. He prepares for the axe kick, but Steiner just lays him out with a clothesline. They fight up the turnbuckles. Steiner hitting a second rope Samoan drop. They go to the corner. Steiner takes Booker to Dick Kick City. A couple of minutes later, Booker's on top and hits a missile drop kick. The axe kick connects. Medeja handing Scott the lead pipe. Scott decks Booker with it mid-side kick. Then he assaults the referee, Charles Robinson, just hangs him upside down so he can keep beating Booker some more. In comes Scott Armstrong, who also gets beaten up. Slick Johnson runs in, throws the match out, and is decked with the pipe as well. Meanwhile, Charles Robinson still hanging upside down. Steiner is on a rampage, continues to demolish Booker with the steel chair. He attacks security some more as he makes his way back up the ramp. And some say you can still see Charles Robinson hung upside down in the corner to this day. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 5. It's a bit of a letdown for me after the magnificence we saw at Fall Brawl with Steiner and Goldberg. This match ending a bit more disappointingly. Again, this is just the typical thing in WCW. There's mass weapons and interference. It doesn't matter. It just kind of makes everything feel the same here. And that's what this one was. So it is disappointing that it ends in a DQ, but this is not the end of Steiner and Booker T over the championship. So we've taken all the time we possibly can here. We have stretched this out to the very end. We are going to have Goldberg, assumedly, scheduled to take on Kronik in a 2-on-1 handicap match. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, he's got to replicate that massive, ungodly win streak in order to even get a title shot. If he loses one match, he is gone. But will he even be able to compete with his bell rung the way it was? Brian Adams on the mic saying, all the hype, all the build for nothing. You can chant Goldberg all you want, but he's not cleared to wrestle. There will be no match tonight. So hit our damn music and raise our hands. So their music plays, their hands are getting raised. This should just be it for all intents and purposes. Just like, okay, open and shut case, night's done, we can all go home. But nope, after the match is technically, over and the hands are raised, we see the Athletic Commission doctors telling Doug Dillinger, okay, he's cleared to go. And Dillinger's like, well, it took y'all long enough. And so then we hear the Goldberg music play. We cut to the back where he's making his entrance, come out of the locker room. Really, man? You're going to headbutt the door still? He makes his way out and the fighting begins. This looks like a sloppy 2-on-1 fight at first before it finally slows down. Goldberg's beaten up on the outside. We go back in the ring. Another table is pulled out of the ring. And I love Stevie here because he's like, wait a minute, I thought we were all out of tables. And Tony's like, there are always more tables. And Stevie's like, then why don't we have a table? The Bryans try the high times into the table, but Goldberg fights back. He gets out of an Adams suplex attempt, spears Clark to the table. We get a 3 count and the win? No, I guess the match is still going. Adams hits the full Nelson slam, but Goldberg still kicks out. Spear to Adams, the jackhammer, the cover, and the win. Goldberg now officially wins. So wait, was that 1 win added to the streak or 2? I give it 1 star out of 5. It's good to end the show on a high note, at least, because the bad taste it was left in fans' mouths in the Booker-Steiner match. But this was basically a squash. It was pretty academic. Who knows how messed up Goldberg really was at this point. There was probably still some lingering damage, but the fans wanted to see the big guy hit some spears, and so at least he got to do that. So after revisiting Halloween Havoc 2000, what is my final grade 7 years later? Well, even if the star ratings may have changed from review to review, surprisingly the final grade remains the same. I give Havoc 2000 a D-. The show started out with so much promise in those first 3 matches, especially the tag title match, which was absolutely the match of the evening. And then it became a thrillers fest, and then we got that terrible kickboxing match, along with other just really subpar matches. And 7 years later, some of these matches did age better for me. Some of them actually aged worse, and I actually noticed more problems with the show, of course, upon a second viewing. They're trying here. This is them trying to, rebound after Russo leaves. We got to try and level this out and make sense of these storylines. So it is not perfect. And again, if you watch the evolution of WCW from now until the end, they do get better. The product does start to improve, but this pay-per-view is not the business. There's just too many fuck-ups going on, self-inflicted screw-ups that just make things very look bush league and very silly. And some of these things cannot be forgotten, in my opinion. But how will WCW bounce back from this in November with their penultimate show of the year, Mayhem? And hey, how about that German-only pay-per-view, the Millennium Final? Well, you're going to have to find out by watching the main channel and the Patreon page, respectively, for the answers to that question. But what did you think about this show? And how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Next time here on the Classic Review, we are taking a break from WCW in the year 2000. We're going back to TNA. We're going to look at Bound for Glory 2006. We're going to get the thrilling conclusion to the World Championship storyline between Sting and Jeff Jarrett. Yay!